How often do you think about the sun? Perhaps frequently, most likely not a lot. We take its life-giving light for granted in our day-to-day, knowing it will shine down on us the next morning all the same. But what if light wasn't a guarantee? What if you spent days or weeks on end underground with nothing more than the faint light of bioluminescent mushrooms keeping you from total pitch darkness? Would you go blind? Would it drive you mad? This is the miserable life of a Grimlock, a human soul so distant from the sun's light that it has lost the ability to speak, to think, and to see. Welcome to Critically Misused, a show where we look at misunderstood aspects of D&D. On this episode, we'll be covering the tragedy of the Grimlocks and Derro. It's a glorious day for ABiggs, who's been asking for this episode for nearly a month. The stories behind the Grimlocks and the Derro are frighteningly similar. They are humans and dwarves brought underground by mind flayers to serve as minions and food. Unlike the Duergar and the Gith, they did not manage to escape with their minds intact. Though some have gotten loose and formed packs in the Underdark, they are nothing of their former selves, and are barely even sentient at this point. After failure amongst failure to lobotomize humanoid populations, the mind flayers finally succeeded. And all that's left to do now is to look at pity at the creatures that were once ambitious, joyful souls. Derro perhaps got it best, though that isn't saying much. They have retained their intelligence and speech, but not their wisdom. Without it, they are fanatics, worshipping the mind flayers as protectors rather than tormentors. They might even know what the mind flayers do to them, but in their eyes it's okay. They believe in taking any means necessary to survive, and have completely abandoned all morals and empathy to do so. Still, they remain capable of higher thought, which is more than I can say for the Grimlocks. In the age of the Mind Flayers, the human ancestors to Grimlocks were trying to get by. They hid from the immense power of their alien overlords, hoping their brains would live another day. That was until their high priest declared the Illithids as saints, gods that walked the earth. The people, desperate and hopeful, believed them, and followed the priests into the servants of their new masters. They had been betrayed. Their priests were nothing more than thralls, empty shells puppeteered by mind flayer larvae. The good people searching for protection were led straight into the gullet of the very force they feared, and were kept there for centuries. When the Gith rose and the mind flayers fell, their worshippers were led deep underground with them. They spent millennia growing accustomed to the dark. Without the warmth of the sun, they grew hostile, blind, and animalistic. They can no longer be called human or even sentient. They have been reduced to mindless things living in perpetual squalor. Don't run Grimlocks as villains, or even as random encounters, for they are pitiable creatures incapable of combat. Despite their keen hearing and smell, they are blind beyond a 30-foot radius and deal practically no damage, and are only intimidating in very large groups. Their purpose is a harsh reminder of the cruelty of the mind flayers and the cruelty of the Underdark. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. If you've made it this far, consider dropping a like and subscribing, and perhaps suggest a monster you'd like to see me cover in the comments below. I'd prefer a nice creature after the darkness of this episode, but it's up to you. I recommend Legends and Lattes for those of you looking for some positivity after this episode. This video isn't sponsored, I just really like the book. Safe travels, until we meet again.